All right, welcome everybody to another deep dive.
Yeah.
Today, we're going to tackle something that I think a lot of us have thought about at one point or another.
Okay, yeah.
Does critical thinking really give graduates a leg up in today's world? I mean, we hear it all the time.
Right, yeah.
But does it actually make a difference?
Mm-hmm.
We're going to try to find out. We've got two sources that we're diving deep into today.
All right.
One is an article from the Times Higher Education.
Okay.
And then we also have a chapter from this book called Understanding Global Skills for 21st Century Professions.
All right. That's interesting.
So let's just jump right in. I mean, first of all, how are these sources even defining critical thinking?
Yeah. Well, the Times Higher Education piece, they're really focused on that practical side of it, you know, analyzing information objectively, spotting biases, making good judgments. But then you have Bourn, who goes a little bit deeper, I would say.
Okay.
He's arguing that critical thinking is really the foundation of what he calls these global skills, which are essential for navigating our, well, increasingly interconnected world, which is true.
Yeah.
You know, everything's so connected now.
This global skills idea, I think, is really interesting.
Sure.
The world is complex, right?
Yeah.
We need to be able to think critically to even function.
Oh, absolutely.
Can you talk a little bit more about
Yeah. So Bourn outlines these like 4 key global skills: critical thinking, communication, collaboration, and adaptability. And he sees those all as very intertwined and essential for success in the 21st century.
Okay.
And he puts critical thinking as a foundation for all of those.
Right.
So you got to have that in order to be able to do the other ones well.
Got it. So it's not just about, like, you know, looking at information and analyzing it. It's about applying that analysis to understand, like, different cultures.
Absolutely.
And different perspectives and different ways of doing things.
Exactly. It's like, how do we all work together, you know, with all our differences?
Totally. So this Times Higher Ed article,
Yeah.
what's its take on whether or not critical thinking actually helps grads?
Well, they actually present a pretty balanced view, I would say. They explore both sides.
Okay.
Some experts they quoted believe that critical thinking is essential for graduates to be able to succeed in today's job market. It allows them to adapt to new situations, solve complex problems, and be innovative, which I think are all super important.
Right, because if you can think critically, you're not just following instructions.
Right.
You're understanding the why.
Exactly.
And you can think of your own solutions.
Yeah, and come up with new things. Be creative, you know?
Totally.
But the article also brings up a counter-argument.
Okay.
Some critics say that the idea of critical thinking is just too abstract. It's really hard to measure.
Right.
And so it's hard to directly link it to career success.
It's like, we know it's important,
Yeah,
but how do we prove it?
exactly. That's the big debate. But, I mean, even if it's hard to measure, you can't argue that it isn't a valuable skill. Especially in this world where we have so much information being thrown at us all the time and all these different perspectives and everything's moving so fast.
And everyone wants your attention all the time.
Yeah.
It's like overwhelming.
Exactly.
Totally. Okay, so let's go to this Bourn guy's global skills framework.
Okay, yeah.
How does he fit critical thinking into that?
He puts it as like the foundation of this framework. He's arguing that critical thinking is really the key to like thriving in this world, full of all these different people and viewpoints, allowing you to understand those different perspectives and collaborate across cultures.
Right, like it's almost of a superpower.
Yeah, for sure. If you can master that, you're pretty much set for anything.
Totally. So we have these two sources here. Both are talking about critical thinking. They're coming at it from different angles. Are they ultimately saying the same thing?
I think, yeah, ultimately they're both saying that critical thinking is really important for graduates, especially in this complex world that we live in. The Times Higher Ed article really focuses on the potential career benefits.
Right.
And Bourn places it in this larger picture of like global competencies, you know?
Totally. So for our listeners out there, what does this all mean?
Yeah.
How can they actually like develop these skills?
Well, both sources actually offer some pretty good tips.
Okay.
The Times Higher Ed article suggests actively seeking out diverse perspectives, questioning assumptions, and really carefully evaluating evidence. And Bourn talks a lot about reflective practice, which is like consciously analyzing your experiences and learning from mistakes.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So it's not just about, you know, doing well in school.
Right.
It's about like being a better person.
Exactly, yeah. Being a more engaged citizen, being a more effective communicator, all that good stuff.
Right. A more effective human, basically.
Exactly, yeah.
I love it. But before we wrap up, I'm wondering if the sources gave any concrete examples,
Oh, yeah.
like how graduates are using critical thinking to really stand out.
Yeah, they do actually. So the Times Higher Ed article highlights a case study where a recent grad used their critical thinking to find a flaw in a company's marketing strategy.
Wow.
And this led to a huge increase in sales.
No way.
And then Bourn gives an example of a young professional who used their critical thinking skills to navigate like a really complex negotiation
Oh, wow.
that was cross-cultural, and it ended up being successful for everybody involved.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, really good examples of critical thinking being used in the real world.
Yeah. I mean, that just shows you that these skills, they work anywhere.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, it's not just one specific field.
Exactly.
It's a life skill.
Yeah.
This has been a really, really insightful deep dive. I hope that you, listener, are feeling a little bit more confident in your critical thinking abilities, or at least how to develop them.
Yeah, for sure.
I know I am.
Me too.
But here's something I want you to think about. How do you think critical thinking skills are developed differently in different cultures
That's a good question.
or different global contexts?
Yeah, that's really interesting to think about. It's probably pretty different.
Right. So that's something to ponder.
Definitely.
Thank you for joining us today. Keep those critical thinking muscles flexed, and we'll catch you next time
See you next time.
on another deep dive.